Extra question 1. Andrew, Brittany and Chris fill orders in a fast food restaurant. The table below records the number of correct and incorrect orders that they filled on a randomly selected day. So we have 200 orders overall. We've got the data displayed in a contingency table. We've got Andrew, Brittany and Chris across the columns, and we've got correct or incorrect on the rows. Now, for example, of those 200 orders, 70 were correct and filled by Andrew. Out of a total of 75 that he filled, 70 were correct and 75 were incorrect for Andrew out of those 200. So we've got our contingency table, and when we have contingency table questions, we generally find that our probabilities will be one of 5 different types of things. And we looked at our COLA and gender example in the lectures. So we know that with a contingency table type probability question, we can be asked to find a marginal, a complement, a joint, a union, or a conditional. And we've got the data in our contingency table. It's a matter of working out firstly from the word problem what we're needing to find, and then we can look for it in our contingency table. So we're told an order has just been filled, and our question part A is, if it is filled by Andrew, what is the probability that it's correctly filled? Now, we've sort of got 2 bits of information here. We're told it's filled by Andrew, and then we want to find the probability that it's correctly filled. So we've got 2 things, Andrew and correct. Question is it joint, union, or conditional? Now notice the wording of the question. If it is filled by Andrew, what is the probability that it's correctly filled? This suggests that we're talking about only orders filled by Andrew, and then we want to know what's the probability of being correctly filled. So in this type of situation, we're given part of the information. Even though we haven't used that word given, if it is filled by Andrew is just another way of saying, given that it's being filled by Andrew, what's the probability that it's correctly filled? So keeping that in mind, this has to be a conditional probability. Once you're dealing with a conditional probability, you need to say to yourself, well, which is the bit I know, and what is the probability I'm trying to find? Well, I'm trying to find the probability that the order is correct, given that Andrew filled it. So Andrew is my condition, correct is the thing I'm looking for as a probability. So notation-wise, I'm looking for the probability the order was correct, given that Andrew filled it. Now, when it's conditional, remember that in terms of the contingency table, we don't need to look at the whole set of data anymore. We just focus on the subset that relates to the condition. Now here our condition is Andrew, so we only look at the Andrew column. Overall, Andrew filled 75 orders, and 70 of them were correct. So given we know it's Andrew, the probability of a correct order is 70 out of 75. Put that into your calculator, turn it into a decimal, and you can also turn it into a percentage. So we end up with 93.3%. Okay, part B. Who filled the order is unknown, but it was incorrectly filled. What is the probability that Chris filled the order? So in this case, the probability we're looking for is Chris, and the partial information is that it was incorrectly filled. So again, this is a conditional probability question. We're dealing with 2 things. We know that who filled the order is unknown, but we do know it was incorrectly filled. So it's like, given incorrectly filled, what is the probability that Chris filled the order? So incorrect is our condition, and we want to find the probability of Chris in that context. Now, as soon as we've written it up in that way as a conditional probability, we know the technique is to focus on the subset of the contingency table that relates to the condition. Here our condition is incorrect, so we look only at the incorrect row. Now, there were 23 incorrect orders. That was the total of that row. How many of them were filled by Chris? 8 of them. So 8 out of 23 are our odds that Chris filled the order, given we know that it was incorrect. Type 8 divided by 23 into your calculator, you get 0.348 as a decimal, which of course is the same as 34.8% as a percentage.